Hello and welcome to 177 Nations of Tasmania. Now, Kenya is perhaps best known for its elite long-distance runners and safari parks. It's a country that's had its share of challenges since gaining independence from Britain in 1963, and it's also the third largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa after Nigeria and South Africa. Now, my guest for this episode is Cecilia, who grew up in a small town in Kenya, surrounded by a big family group, living a largely rural lifestyle surrounded by animals and vegetable gardens. Cecilia was able to do well in school, and her education path would eventually lead her to take up postgraduate study in Melbourne. And since 2020, she has been working in the health industry in Launceston, Tasmania. So please join me to hear more about Cecilia's story from life in Kenya to life in Tasmania.
I'm originally from Kenya, so that's sort of East Africa. I grew up in a town called Nakuru, which is 2 hours drive from the capital, Nairobi. I grew up on a farm, so lots of cows and everything else between. Just typical childhood of playing. I didn't have any sort of sisters, so I grew up with boys, did all things boys would do and not do. But yeah, pretty much on a farm, yeah.
So what were some of your favourite activities in that when you were a child on the farm? What sort of things did you get up to?
I think we should probably start with what I did not like to do. So, no, I think growing up on a farm as a young girl, as a young child, you quite enjoy everything. I think we had lots of animals, not so much a big farm, but lots of animals. And I was lucky to live with my paternal grandmother, so who sort of shaped me on what to do, how to look after animals. So I think my most favorite one, looking after rabbits, getting all the veggies from the farm for them. I never liked looking after the cows, and I think that was more of a boy's job. So whenever I would feel like I want to do it and get into mischief with the boys, that's when I'd go in and look after the cows. But I think I loved the rabbits and definitely the dogs, the ducks as well.
So you had a lot of different types of animals on the farm.
Yeah, so lots of different things on a sort of not on a large scale, just little. Back in the day, we used to call, or the term that they use is domestic farming. So little bits of everything, just in small numbers.
So it was mostly the food was mostly for the family, not for like selling.
So from the farm produce, some of the food would be supplied because my town is also a tourist destination. So we would supply some of the surplus to the hotels. Yeah, but mainly it was for just family feeding and all that.
And what sort of vegetables are typical of?
So you've got your leafy vegetables. So kale is kale. We eat lots of kale. Cabbage. Lots of veggies. We grew lots, mainly for the hotels, and that's where you found your radishes, your beets, your beetroots, parsley. So all that I grew up with because we'd grow for the hotels, like I said. So there was lots of different things that would grow. And my father traveled a lot. So I think part of him traveling was he would always bring seeds from different food seeds to plant. So we grew different things just mainly to service the demand for the hotels. But yeah, your typical food was just the veggies, like I said, cabbage, kale, corn, which we refer to as maize back there, which is a staple food.
So it sounds quite a healthy lifestyle, really.
Yes, it is, as long as you eat what you grow and not sell most of it. So I think the staple food was ugali, which is more like, I think the best way to describe it is like a mashed potato, but you sort of cook it in boiling water, and then you add the maize flour, which is white in color. So it's a meal, or it's a food that's shared also in Africa. In the southern Africa, it's called pap. In Zimbabwe, they call it tsaza. So you eat that with your vegetable. So that's a staple. You also have a mix of maize and beans, which is common to my ethnic group. So you get a mix of what is common in the country, and you also, to another level, you eat what is also common in your ethnic group.
Yeah, right.
So quite a variety. And then if you're lucky to live with other ethnic groups, you also get to try what they eat. So yeah, it depends where you live. Yeah.
So is there a lot of variation in Kenya in the types of cuisine people eat?
Yes, there is. So moving from the coast, the Kenyan coast, which is the Indian Ocean, they've got a lot of influence from the Arab trade. So you'll find more rice, more spicy, fish, coconut, and then as you move further mainland, then you get into your sort of soil-grown food. So you've got lots of tubers, lots of vegetables. So you'll find people eating sweet potato, maize, which is what we refer to corn, and then your vegetables, and then sort of towards the other end of the lake, which is Lake Victoria, then you find the fish. Yeah, so there's quite a variation, and then you also get the pastoralists up north and sort of down south who depend more on meat and milk and blood. I was lucky to live in an area where there were schools, public schools. Obviously, walking was the thing. We didn't have buses to take us to and from school, so it was walking. And you do a half day, say from 8 to 1. That I think that was junior. But education was available, public. Also, luckily, just to say, I also lived in an area where we were closer to sort of the army barracks, and so as a public service, they had schools. So I went to one of the schools that was offered to the public by the Kenyan Army. So that made it close. But up until grade what we call standard 4 in the Kenyan education system, as was the norm then, we all got sent off to boarding school.
Okay.
So I did boarding school pretty much from when I was about 8, 9, all the way through to my high school. So it will be 3 months at school and then 1 month at home during the whole school holidays. And so throughout that up until high school. And I think that was a norm for most of the children that I grew up with. But we were lucky, yes, to have both public schools and private schools. So it was only a matter of what could your parents afford. If they afforded to take you to a public school, that was fine. Private school, then you were lucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it like to go to boarding school? Was it far away from your home?
Oh yes, mine was very far because again, so it was 2 hours into the capital city, Nairobi, and just probably I would say about 40 minutes off. It was very cold.
Right.
So as a young person, never liked it. But you know, you get along with others, and yeah, you make friends who become your family. And then 1-2 years into boarding school, you get used to the life, you get used to the food, you get used to the normal life, and you just work out, study, and look forward to the school breaks and just go home. And because everyone else, you know, all your friends back home were also in boarding school. So there was really...
I guess that helps, doesn't it?
No, not missing out. So in high school, I was lucky. I was about half an hour from home. So that was good. And when you finish the primary school, you have to select which schools you'd potentially want to go to. So I saw one on my list and I thought, oh, this sounds close to home. Even it's a boarding school, yes, but I'll still study hard, get the score, the marks, and yeah. So I was lucky that I was about half an hour from home, but still a boarding school. So again, another 4 years of boarding school, girls school, and again, lucky enough, it was a school to service the Kenyan Army, but I was lucky I got in, and again shaped up my education and life, and 4 years done.
And is schooling, what language is schooling mainly in there?
So the official language for teaching in Kenya is English. So the national language being Swahili, official language English, and then you've got all the other ethnic languages spoken in the country. It does make a difference that you're actually taught in English, because then you can use it, allows you to easily communicate with so many other people from so many other countries. So good asset to have.
What were sort of your the favourite things at high school, or what did you like to study?
I think I liked the languages. So I quite enjoyed literature. I enjoyed music. I should have listened to my music teacher, seriously. I'd probably have a career in music. So I enjoyed the languages. I also played field hockey in school, but got into an accident and then I just couldn't play for the last 2 years of high school. So but pretty much it.
And when you finished high school, did you have, or you got to the end of high school, did you have any idea or goal of what you wanted to do?
I wouldn't say I exactly knew what I wanted. I sort of had an idea. I think from a very young age, I wanted to be a veterinary.
Okay.
So obviously, I didn't realize how, it's quite a profession that you really need to score highly in terms of marks. You really need to do well in the sciences. And then I lost the interest in that. Along somewhere the line, I wanted to be an environmental activist. That also faded. But I think having the 2 years pre-uni sort of shaped me and allowed me to sort of decide on what I wanted to do. Not completely sure, but I think for me it was sort of like a journey. I would take every year and every study that I took and sort of try and understand, all right, what could this do for me? What could I see myself doing with this in future? I think it's only up until when I joined university and actually chose my course that I was sort of now guiding my path and like, all right, I could actually do this. Like this is my pathway, this is my career. Yeah.
So what did you decide to do at uni in the end?
So I chose to do social sciences with a sociology major and a gender and development minor. So because I knew sociology was such an open field, and it had different topics. So I knew my dream of veterinary didn't die because I knew there was a bit of it that I could contribute to health. Activism hadn't died. I would probably, I would now be, an activist for maybe women or gender development issues. So it's sort of all blended in and, a further step, I think. Yeah, so the 3 years that I did of uni sort of shaped that and so sort of a mix and match of everything. But I think up until my master's is when I thought, maybe now you really, really need to tone it down. You can't just have a mix and match career. You need to streamline it and choose what you want to do.
You need to have a focus.
Yes.
In your family, was education really pushed and encouraged?
Yes, it was. My parents made sure that we went to good schools, and I probably want to say thank you to them. So I count myself lucky that I did go to good schools. And so there was no mucking around. If the school fees was paid, all the school supplies were supplied, you just had to work. You had to work hard. And if you didn't work hard, there was trouble. There was definitely trouble either when you went back home for your school breaks or when dad or mom was called in for a school meeting because you were just, not working hard. And looking back, and I could see where possibly my dad made it to college. My mom doesn't really talk much about higher education. So I think there was that push to be better than what they were. Yeah. And I think that's where that push came from. But, even among siblings, you could see parents being, all right, I think this one's not really going to do well with education. So they did try to support us where they could. If you loved your books, they would support you. But regardless, there was still that you've got to get the bare minimum basic of your literacy and numeracy skills, get to a certain level, and then from there you can decide. But quite strict, I have to be honest. As long as, like I said, as long as they were paying the school fees, feeding you and providing the school supplies, you had to go to school and you had to study.
And what did your parents do, actually?
So my dad worked in the tourism industry.
Okay.
So worked in that field for about 35 years. My mum was, I would like to say, the house manager. But she also managed the farm when my father was away. So my father would leave on a Monday morning, drive into the city and come back on a Friday.
Oh,
so
right.
from Monday to Friday, you'd have mom with you. So she would be the house manager. She would call the shots
Yeah.
and everything else between. So, yeah. They say is a child is raised by the community. So it means, one, normally there's no mom, dad, brother, sister. So in some instances, you live in an extended family, and that was the case for me. So I lived in an extended family where I lived with my mom's siblings.
Okay.
So it was a big household. I have to say there was about 14. So that was a big household. It was fun. It had its own challenges, but still manageable and good. And in a child being raised by the community, same thing. The community raised you. So you live in a community where someone knows your parents, they know your siblings, they know your grandparents. And therefore, if you are in the wrong, they found you doing the wrong thing, as a community member, they had the right to smack you.
Yeah. Right.
And sort of tell you, don't do that, and later on report it to your parent and say, I found them doing this and I smacked them. So there was there's that community sense that, you look out for each other, you share. If you don't have, you share, a bit of, I would say, exchange barter trade. If you have surplus from the farm, you share. And same thing, if you visit someone else and they've got surplus, you share. So there was that. So you'd only probably go into town once a week just to get what you can't grow. I would want to say there is a sense of that communalism left in some societies and in some areas, but I think there's also some bit of it that is also individual, because there's quite a number of people moving into the cities. So I think that is a matter of choice, whether you choose to be part of the community or you choose to be an individual. I think it's not a matter of a thing of the country. I think it's more a personal thing. But in some areas, yes, true. By default, you just have to be part of the community. The extended family is very important. We don't call them extended. That's the family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is no nuclear, there's no extended. When you say, in an African context, when you say family, it means uncles, aunties, cousins, grandparents, great. So that's family. And yes, in certain ceremonies, marriage, burial, and all that, the family has to have a say. So it just depends on how either the ethnic group is structured and what are their ways of doing things during certain events or ceremonies. But yeah, when we talk about family and including family, it can grow from mom, dad, siblings, and all the way to great-grandparents, to even uncles you never met.
Yeah,
They have a say. So I actually moved to Tasmania for work. So I was previously working in Victoria, in Melbourne. So during COVID, I got a job offer to work in Tasmania, and I packed my bags and left.
How did the job come about? Like, how did you find out about it, or how did you apply?
So my contract in Melbourne was coming to an end, and so sort of that was the peak of COVID. I think that was sort of March 2020. So I saw the job offer in Tasmania on LinkedIn. So I applied for that one and got that. So I had to say no to my contract in Melbourne was extended. So I said no to that one and said yes to the Tasmanian one.
Well, I should mention we're in Launceston at the moment. So what were your first impressions?
Launceston sort of reminds me of a particular town in my home country.
Okay.
So the cold, sort of, not so much the apples in Loni as it is in Huon Valley, but the cold, the apples, the pears. So I sort of felt like home. Yes, I think when you find something in a town that you can sort of associate or relate back to, back from where you come from, I think you sort of get a sense of being at home, and that sort of allowed me to sort of settle in a little bit.
Why Australia? Or was it just that the course you wanted to do was here? Or Was there a reason?
Why not? Why not Australia? I think the main thing for me, the two considerations I gave was being taught in a language that I would understand. So English, being taught in English was a big factor. And also the fact that, there's no harsh winters, to be honest. So obviously coming from the tropics, I had experienced late winter, early spring in Europe when I had visited. So, and I thought, if I have to live with this for 4 years, I don't think I would. And I think also the time frame for the course, so it was about 2 years, 2.5 for a double degree. So that was it. And I hadn't really been to Australia. To be honest, when I got on the plane, I didn't know how far it was. And other than obviously what you see on National Geographic, which I used to watch quite a lot, I didn't know much. So I think also for me it was an experience, just wanting to know wanting that curiosity, wanting to find out what is this country made of. And actually, when I packed my bags and left Kenya and came to Australia, I was like, all right, I'll do my 2.5 years and then I'll see what happens. Other than just finding the course, I hadn't done further homework on what after the studies. I knew once the studies come to an end, if I can stay, I'll stay. If I cannot stay, I'll find the next country to move to. So after graduation, obviously you have to make sure your papers are right. So like I said earlier, I hadn't done my homework, so I just knew studying. And then I thought, there's postgraduate opportunity to stay and look for work. So I did that. I volunteered my time with Cancer Council in Melbourne then. So I used to do a day there, part-time, continued with my part-time while still looking for formal employment. And I was lucky 1 year after graduation, I did get offered a position to work on a full-time role. So, and lucky again in my field of study. So it's one thing to actually study something and get a job in something, but I was lucky I got a job in my area of study. So that's how I started earning my money.
Yeah. And how long did that take after you graduated before you?
I'd say about 12 months. Okay. So it took me about 12 months. I wasn't out of employment. I did have part-time jobs, but you're all obviously looking for formal employment, more so looking for your area of study, so you can have that introduction to the Australian workplace and actually put what you've studied into use. Yeah. So it was about 12 months. I think the 2.5 years of uni, I think the best word is I tried to interact, to learn as much as I could. And it's interesting because when you come in, they sort of give you like a piece of paper that say, avo means afternoon, sort of the little slang used, the common slang used in Australia to sort of this means that. But I think it's opening yourself up and knowing in the 2 years of uni, you're just not studying. You also want to understand the way of life, the social. So if you sort of close off yourself from that, then down the line you will have a problem, interacting with others. But if you open yourself, then when someone says bring your own plate, then you won't find it shocking because you've gone to a uni party and they've said bring a plate, and you know what that means. No. But yes, there was a few differences, but not quite. On my part, I wouldn't say there was anything that was quite out there. I still find the idea of a sausage on a bread quite interesting, other than on a hot dog bun. But yeah, I'll still get a sausage at Bunnings. Yeah. And I have to say, if you're from Melbourne, knowing a little 1, 2, or 3 things about football comes in handy, and actually having a team to support.
Definitely.
Yes. That social something, a social subject to start your conversation in. Yeah, football, rugby, soccer.
You don't even have to like it necessarily. It just helps to have a team as a way to start a conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's also vice versa because coming from Kenya where, track and field events. We're known for marathons. So I've also found it the same. Where are you from? You're from Kenya. Oh, do you know so and so? And they mention names of people, long distance runners, marathon. And you're like, yeah. So also for me, it's like, oh, how do you know about them? So there's that appreciation of like, we've picked interest as a migrant. I've picked interest in something in Australia, and where else there's also people in the country who've also picked interests in things in sport from my country. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah.
How are you finding Launceston so far?
I love it. Probably don't even want to go go back. No, I quite enjoy it. I now know how long it takes me from one end of town to the other. I've mastered the layout in my local supermarket, where everything else. No, I think I quite enjoy it. Like I said, it does give you that sense of, it feels like home. It's starting to feel like home. And it starts to feel like home when you see interstate number plates and you go, oh, you're not from here. And liking it, I think, whether COVID has been a good thing or a bad thing, it's because there wasn't much going on during COVID. Sort of life had slowed down. It gives you a sense to appreciate that quiet time, downtime, just taking life slowly, still doing the things that you want to do. I still miss the hustle and bustle of Melbourne, to be honest. I miss the noise of the trams, but I think I had lived that life through uni and through work, and I didn't get to realize how quick and fast it was until I was like, you could actually get to work same time without having to leave early. Yeah, you could still get work done without, lots of coffee. But yeah, I've found your good shops, you found your good coffee shop, you've still found places that you quite enjoy when you want that social interaction. And generally, I enjoy the outdoor, so there is enough in my backyard. Just the gorge is right at my backyard, so there is enough to do in the town. Every weekend, where I can, I will try and get as far away from the city as I can. So yes, I used to, before I relocated to Tasmania, since 2016, I'd visit every year. So I knew the places where I'd want to go. So I knew, all right, Launceston, quite central. It gives me accessibility to all the other areas. So I have done quite a few. So I've done the west coast of Tasmania. I've done the southwest. So mainly through hiking and trekking. So whether as a day trip, day walk, or an overnight. So yeah, I've done the east coast all the way, starting from Masaroy Bay, all the way down to as far as Sorel, Sorel.
Okay.
So I've done that one. West coast again, and obviously you little day trips here and there. So yeah, and where I have not been to, I am planning to get there. So actually, yesterday I came from Mount Murchison in Tala.
Okay.
Yeah, so did that one, 5-hour walking track.
Wow.
So that was good. The one thing I have found more so about the people, it's more so about, I guess, maybe the way things are done here is more, say, I think you have better luck by word of mouth here than you would formally, say, in Melbourne. Melbourne is formally. But I find here you get things more done. You find who's who. You find a plumber. You find who's selling the best eggs by word of mouth.
Yeah.
So if you tell someone that you're looking for something or you want something, they will definitely guide you to someone who knows someone who knows someone, and then eventually you'll find the help that you're looking for. So yeah, word of mouth. Yeah, which is quite good, because sometimes, or if I look at where I come from and where I grew up, sometimes the word of mouth is how you used to get things done. There was no there was no formal process of doing things. It was, like I said, you've got surplus in the farm, someone, you ask around who grew this season and all that. So word of mouth does help. And I guess that's some of the bit that you sort of, this actually does feel like more like home.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in a bad way, but yeah, it just gives you a sense of belonging, and you sort of get comfortable. So I work in project management in the primary healthcare setting. So that means not directly, managing projects that either have to deal with health promotion, allied health. So that's my area of work. So implementing new projects, managing ongoing projects. So that's my everyday. That's my 9 to 5.
So does that mean you're involved in trying to promote good health practices, like in public health?
Well, this is not in public health, although it does cut across when you sort of bring in a health promotion program, but it's more so primary healthcare settings. So allied health, you're dealing with, say, people who need help managing their chronic conditions. Say they need to manage their diabetes. So run programs on that. So mainly I'm on the back end of it. So you've got your front workforce doing all the one-on-one, face-to-face. But for me, it's at the back end, managing the projects, thinking what can we do, what projects can we implement that could benefit this population group, how can we change things, if something's not working, what can we work, what else can we try that's going to make it work. Yeah.